My parents skipped my wedding. But when they spotted my $135,000 Porsche on Instagram, Mom rang, "We need to talk. Family meeting tomorrow." I showed up, with a surprise. I never thought a car could bring my family back into my life. But when my parents saw my brand new Porsche on Instagram, after 2 years of complete silence, my mom's voice on the phone was the calm before an emotional storm. I'm 27 now, and honestly, it's only recently that I could even afford therapy to unpack why my parents decided to skip my wedding. For most of my life, Liam, felt like background noise in my own family. My older sister, Chloe, who's 29, was always the star, the golden child who could do no wrong. She was the one my parents actually wanted to talk about at dinner parties. When Chloe graduated college, they threw her a huge party, 200 guests, a live band. 2 years later, when I graduated with honors in computer science, my mom sent a text, "Congrats," with a thumbs up emoji. My dad said we'd celebrate later, but that day never came. Chloe announced a promotion at her marketing firm that same week, and just like always, my achievements were overshadowed. I learned early that my wins were just bad timing. My first job at a tech startup paid decently, and what's the first thing my parents asked? If I could help pay for Chloe's destination bachelorette party in Orlando. I was 23, barely making rent in my cramped Phoenix apartment, yet I was expected to fund her third trip of the year. I said no. My mom gave me the silent treatment for a month. That's when I started looking into cryptocurrency. Not because I was some tech bro chasing quick riches, but because I needed a way out of a cycle where I was constantly expected to give, but never celebrated. I started small, learning everything about blockchain, joining online communities, making tiny investments with what little I had after bills. My parents thought it was idiotic. "That's not real money, Liam," my dad would scoff, usually before launching into another glowing update about Chloe's latest career move. My mom would add, "You're wasting your time with internet funny money," shaking her head like I'd just told her I was joining a cult. They never asked what I was actually doing, never showed an ounce of curiosity about the tech or why I believed in it. They just dismissed it entirely because it wasn't a traditional career path, not like Chloe's corporate ladder climb. Then I met Maya at a blockchain conference in Salt Lake City. She was an architect exploring NFT art spaces, and we clicked instantly over being the black sheep of our families, the ones who chose unconventional paths. We dated for a year before I proposed. When I told my parents I was getting engaged, my mom's first response was, "Oh, that's nice." And then, immediately, "Did you hear Chloe might make senior director?" I should have seen the warning signs, but a part of me still hoped they'd show up for me, just once. Maya and I planned a small wedding, nothing extravagant, just 40 people at a vineyard outside Phoenix. I personally called my parents 3 times to confirm, sent a handwritten note with the invitation, even offered to pay for their hotel room. Every time, they said yes. They told me they wouldn't miss it, that they were proud. The week before the wedding, Chloe called my parents in a panic. She'd gotten food poisoning and needed someone to nurse her. My parents lived 2 hours from me, but only 20 minutes from Chloe. So, somehow, they decided my 29-year-old sister, who had a husband, needed both of them to help her through a stomach bug. My wedding day arrived on a perfect Saturday in October, sunny and 75 degrees. I stood at the altar, scanning the crowd for their faces. The ceremony was supposed to start at 4. I asked the officiant to wait 15 minutes, then 20, then 30. Maya squeezed my hand, whispering, "They're not coming, are they?" And something broke inside my chest that day. I don't think it ever fully healed. We started the ceremony with 2 empty seats in the front row, name cards mocking me every time I glanced at them. My phone buzzed during the vows. Afterward, I checked. A group text from my mom, sent to both me and Chloe, "Sorry we couldn't make it. Chloe really needed us. Hope you understand. Congratulations." No phone call, no personal message. Just a generic text, including my sister. Later, Chloe's husband told me she'd been feeling better by Friday night and spent Saturday watching movies while my parents fussed over her, making soup and fluffing pillows for a grown woman who could have taken care of herself. Something shifted in me that night during the reception, dancing with Maya, celebrating with friends who actually showed up. I realized I'd spent my entire life waiting for my parents to see me, to value me, to treat my accomplishments as worth their time. I was done waiting. I stopped calling them, stopped responding to group texts, stopped showing up to family dinners where I'd sit quietly while everyone dissected Chloe's life. Meanwhile, my crypto investments started paying off in ways I hadn't expected. Small gains turned into bigger ones as I learned to read markets and make smarter choices. I got promoted at my tech job, started blockchain consulting on the side, and within 2 years, I'd saved enough for a down payment on something I'd always wanted, a Guards red Porsche 911. The kind of car I'd dreamed about since I was a kid. I didn't buy it to show off or prove anything. I bought it because I could, because I'd earned it, because for once, I wanted something beautiful that was unequivocally mine. I posted a photo on Instagram, just me leaning against the hood in a parking garage, caption, "Hard work pays off," with a location tag from downtown Phoenix. I honestly wasn't thinking about my parents. I'd forgotten they even followed me. 3 days later, my phone rang. My mom's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Liam," she said, her voice bright and cheerful, like we talked every day. "We need to talk." She didn't ask how I was. Didn't mention missing my wedding or the 2 years of silence. "Family meeting tomorrow," she announced, like inviting me to a parade. "Your father and I need to discuss something important with you and Chloe. Can you come to the house around 2? I sat in my car, looking at my reflection in the rearview mirror, wondering what could possibly be so important after 2 years of nothing. "Sure, Mom," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I'll be there." I had a feeling I knew exactly what this was about. And I was curious enough to show up and see how wrong, or right, I was about these people who were supposed to be my parents. I pulled up to their house in the Porsche at exactly 2 p.m. I could see the living room curtains twitch as someone peeked out at the car. Maya sat beside me, squeezing my hand before we got out. "You ready for this?" she asked. I nodded, my stomach doing flips. The front door opened before we even reached the porch. My mom stood there, arms crossed, her eyes locked on the Porsche in their driveway. "That's quite a car," she said. Not hello, not how are you, just a comment about my vehicle. My dad appeared behind her. Chloe was already on the couch, phone in hand, barely looking up when we walked in. The house smelled the same, vanilla candles, my mom's obsessive cleaning products. Being back after 2 years felt surreal, like stepping into a museum of my own disappointing childhood. We all sat in the living room, that awkward arrangement, my parents on the love seat, Chloe sprawled across the armchair like she owned the place, Maya and I squeezed onto the remaining couch. No one offered drinks or snacks. My mom asked one quick question about how we were doing, a fake smile plastered on her face, then immediately moved on. We sat in silence for a solid 30 seconds before she cleared her throat. My mom started talking about how glad they were I could make it, her voice artificially bright. My dad nodded along like a bobblehead. Chloe finally put her phone down to look at me. "They wanted to discuss something exciting," my mom said, exchanging a glance with Chloe that told me everything about whose idea this meeting really was. Chloe had a huge opportunity coming up, a really big deal for her career. Suddenly, she was animated. She was organizing a major networking event for her firm, bringing in clients from all over the country, potential investors, important people in the marketing and advertising world. She pulled out her phone, showing me pictures of venues, fancy hotels with crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows. "It was going to be incredible," she said. "About 150 guests, catered dinner, open bar, live entertainment, the whole thing." I sat listening, waiting for the part where this involved me. I didn't have to wait long. My mom jumped in, explaining that Chloe's preferred venue was expensive. While the firm covered most, there was a budget gap. She said it like it was totally normal, like of course I'd want to know about Chloe's budget problems. I asked how much of a gap we were talking about, keeping my voice even. Chloe bit her lip. About $25,000, she said quickly. I know that sounds like a lot, but this event could make my entire career. She leaned forward with those pleading eyes she'd perfected as a kid, explaining that if this went well, she was looking at a major promotion, maybe even a partnership track. This was everything she'd been working toward. My dad finally spoke up, his voice gruff, authoritative. They could see I was doing well, he said, gesturing vaguely toward my Porsche outside. That internet money thing worked out for him, and they were happy about that. They really were. My mom nodded enthusiastically, and I almost laughed at their transparency. Family helps family, she said, using the phrase I'd heard 1,000 times growing up, though it only ever applied when they wanted something from me. Chloe has always been there for this family. And now she needs support for something really important. I looked at Maya, who gripped my hand so tight I thought she might break my fingers. Her jaw was clenched, listening to my parents rewrite history. Chloe had always been there for the family because the family had always been there for her. No one seemed to remember I'd been asking for scraps of attention my whole life. I asked when this event was happening. Chloe's face lit up like I'd already agreed. 6 weeks from now, October 15th, at the Riverside Plaza downtown, she said, pulling up more photos. It's this gorgeous venue right on the water, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It's absolutely perfect. She showed me professional photos. I had to admit, it was beautiful, the kind of place that would photograph well and impress important people. My parents watched me expectantly, and I could feel the weight of their anticipation, the assumption that of course I would say yes, because that's what good sons do. They support their sisters, even when their sisters never supported them. The firm is paying for everything else, Chloe emphasized. I just need help covering the full venue cost and some catering upgrades. That's where the $25,000 comes in. She said it like it was pocket change, like I should be grateful for the opportunity to invest in her success. I sat there for a moment, doing the math. Thinking about what $25,000 meant to me versus what my wedding had meant to them. My entire wedding had cost $30,000. And my parents couldn't be bothered to drive 2 hours because Chloe had a stomach ache. The irony was so thick, I could taste it, bitter and metallic on my tongue. I'll think about it, I finally said. Hope bloomed on all 3 of their faces. I need to check some things, talk to Maya about our finances, but I'll let you know by the end of the week. My mom actually clapped her hands. My dad smiled for the first time since we'd arrived. That's wonderful, Liam, my mom gushed. We knew you'd come through. We knew family would matter to you. Chloe jumped up and actually hugged me, which felt bizarre and performative, like she was already celebrating a victory she hadn't earned yet. We left 20 minutes later after enduring more small talk about Chloe's event and exactly 0 questions about our actual lives, our jobs, our plans, anything that mattered to us. As soon as we got in the car, Maya turned to me, wide-eyed, tension written across her face. Please tell me you're not actually considering this, she said, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. I started the engine, letting the Porsche purr out of the driveway before answering. Oh, I'm definitely helping with Chloe's event, I told her. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind, until I continued. Just not in the way they think. I had exactly 6 weeks to plan something that would make my parents understand what they'd been missing all these years. And I knew exactly what I was going to do with that Riverside Plaza venue. That evening, Maya and I sat at our kitchen table for hours, laptops open, talking through every detail. She was skeptical at first, worried I was being too petty, too vindictive. But the more we talked, the more she understood this wasn't about revenge. It was about making a statement. I'd spent my whole life invisible to these people, and they only saw me now because I had money they wanted. I pulled up the Riverside Plaza website and started making phone calls the next morning. By the end of the week, I'd signed a contract and paid in full for the venue on October 15th, the exact date Chloe needed it. The contract was ironclad, non-refundable, completely in my name. I called my mom on Friday afternoon, just like I promised. "I'm in," I told her. "I'll cover the venue." The shriek of joy that came through the phone was almost comical. I could hear her yelling to my dad and Chloe in the background that I'd agreed to help. "I'm so proud of you, Liam," she said. I wondered if she could hear how empty those words sounded after 27 years of nothing. "Family means everything," she added. I agreed with her, even though we clearly had very different definitions of what family meant. I hung up and looked at Maya, who was watching me with a mixture of concern and admiration. "No turning back now," she said. I smiled for the first time in days, a real genuine smile that came from somewhere deep in my chest. "Good," I said, "because I'm about to show them exactly what they missed out on." The 6 weeks flew by in a blur of planning, phone calls, and careful coordination with people my parents had never met and never would. I kept communication with my family minimal, just occasional texts confirming the venue was secured, everything was on track, Chloe's event would be unforgettable. My mom called twice to gush about how proud she was, how much this meant to Chloe, how family was finally coming together the way it should. I let her talk, made agreeable sounds, and continued planning something completely different than what she imagined. Maya helped me reach out to organizations across Phoenix, making connections with foster care agencies through Child Protective Services, youth mentorship programs, and local charities that worked with kids who'd aged out of the system. The more research we did, the more I realized how many children were living the way I'd felt my entire life, invisible and forgotten. Except their situation was infinitely worse. They didn't even have the basic security of a home that pretended to care. I'd felt invisible in a house full of people. These kids were actually invisible to a system that was supposed to protect them. By the time October 15th rolled around, everything was in place. I'd probably made 300 phone calls to pull it all together. The morning of the event, Chloe texted me asking what time I'd arrive at Riverside Plaza. I told her I'd be there early to make sure everything was set up properly. She sent back a string of heart emojis and exclamation points, completely oblivious to what was coming. I arrived at the venue at 9 a.m. with Maya and a team of coordinators I'd hired. We started transforming the space. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Phoenix let in perfect morning light. We decorated with bright colors, banners that read, "You matter and every kid deserves to be seen," in huge letters across the walls. We set up tables with information about foster care programs, mentorship opportunities, and scholarship funds I personally established for kids aging out of the system. The catering company arrived with food, not fancy hors d'oeuvres for corporate executives, but pizza, burgers, and desserts that actual kids would enjoy. Local news crews started showing up around 11 a.m. 3 different stations I'd personally invited to cover this charity event for foster youth. They began setting up cameras, interviewing organizers about the day's purpose. I'd reached out to them weeks ago with a press release about a major donation and awareness event. They jumped at the story because feel-good news about helping kids always played well. Around noon, the kids started arriving, about 80 of them from various programs around the city, anywhere from 13 to 21 years old. Kids currently in foster care or who'd recently aged out, trying to navigate life alone. They walked in tentatively at first, unsure about this fancy venue and why they'd been invited. But within minutes, they were exploring the space, loading up plates, talking to the mentors and volunteers we'd brought in. I stood near the entrance, watching them. Something settled in my chest that felt like purpose, like maybe all those years of being invisible had led me to this moment where I could help other invisible people actually be seen. The energy in the room was incredible, kids laughing, asking questions, volunteers explaining programs, cameras capturing genuine moments of connection and hope. At 1:30 p.m., exactly when Chloe's corporate networking event was supposed to start, my parents and sister arrived outside in my dad's car. I watched through those floor-to-ceiling windows as they pulled up to the valet. My mom in a designer dress, my dad in his best suit, Chloe looking absolutely stunning in what was probably $1,000 outfit. They walked toward the entrance, expecting business executives and cocktail waiters. Instead, they found an event coordinator I'd hired who politely informed them that today's event was private and they weren't on the guest list. I walked outside to meet them. The look on Chloe's face was something I'll never forget, confusion mixed with rising panic. "Liam, what's going on?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly. "Why are there news cameras here? Why does it say Foster Youth Event on that banner?" My parents stood behind her, equally confused. My mom grabbed my arm with a desperate grip. "Where are Chloe's clients?" she demanded. "What happened to the networking event?" I pulled up my phone and showed them the receipt for the venue, my name on the booking, my credit card charge for the full amount. "I booked this venue exactly like I said I would," I told them calmly. "I just never said what I was booking it for." Chloe's face went white. She started scrolling through her phone frantically, probably realizing she had 150 corporate guests about to show up with nowhere to go. "You're ruining my career," she screamed, loud enough that a few people inside turned to look through the windows. "How could you do this to me, to our family?" My dad stepped forward, chest puffed out, trying to intimidate me the way he had when I was a kid. "This is unacceptable," he said, his voice deep and authoritative. "You will fix this right now." But I wasn't a kid anymore. And I didn't need their approval or their love. "Do you remember my wedding?" I asked quietly, and all three of them froze. 40 people showed up to watch me marry the woman I love. "And you weren't there because Chloe had a stomach ache." My voice stayed calm, but I felt everything I'd been holding for 2 years rising to the surface. "My whole life, I've been invisible to you. Every achievement ignored, every milestone forgotten. Every time I needed support, you were too busy with Chloe's life." My mom tried to interrupt, but I kept going. "You called me after 2 years of silence because you saw a car on Instagram. Not because you missed me, not because you were sorry, but because you wanted money." I gestured toward the building behind me, where kids were laughing and eating, finally being celebrated. "These kids know what it feels like to be invisible, and I'm not going to let them feel that way today." A news reporter had wandered outside, filming this entire confrontation. My mom noticed the camera at the same time I did. She immediately tried to compose herself, smoothing her dress, forcing a smile. But it was too late. "We're very proud of Liam's charitable work," she said loudly for the camera. I almost laughed at the performance. Chloe was crying now, mascara running down her face, her phone ringing nonstop with confused clients, her big career moment completely destroyed. "I hate you," she spat at me. Honestly, it hurt less than I expected because I'd stopped caring about her opinion years ago. "You wanted a family contribution," I said, looking at all three of them. "Well, I contributed to kids who actually need it. Kids who deserve to be seen." I pulled an envelope from my jacket pocket and handed it to my mom. Inside is information about the scholarship fund I established in my name, $50,000 for kids aging out of foster care. Her hands shook as she opened it. I watched her face process that I'd just donated twice what Chloe had asked for to complete strangers. "You could have been part of this," I told them. "You could have been part of my life, my success, my happiness, but you chose Chloe every single time." My dad tried one more time to assert control, demanding I apologize and make this right, but I was already walking away. "I'm moving to Colorado next month," I called back over my shoulder. "Maya got a job offer in Salt Lake City, and we're starting fresh, so you don't have to worry about me asking you for anything ever again." I walked back into that venue full of kids who deserved better. I spent the rest of the afternoon talking to them about cryptocurrency, about taking unconventional paths, about how being invisible doesn't mean you're worthless. The local news ran the story that night, leading with heartwarming footage of the charity event, and ending with 30 seconds of my mom's fake proclamation of pride, which internet commenters immediately saw through and criticized. Chloe's firm apparently scrambled to relocate her networking event to a hotel conference room, but half the clients didn't get the message, and the whole thing was a disaster that cost her the promotion she'd been chasing. 3 months later, Maya and I are settled in Salt Lake City. I've started a nonprofit that connects foster youth with mentors in the tech industry. My parents sent one email after the event, a long, rambling message about how I'd embarrassed them and destroyed Chloe's career, and they hoped I was happy with myself. I never responded, because there was nothing left to say. Sometimes Maya asks if I regret it, if I wish I'd handled things differently. But honestly, I've never felt more at peace. I spent 27 years trying to be seen by people who were determined not to look at me. Now, I spend my time helping kids who just need one person to notice they exist. My Instagram is full of photos from mentorship events and scholarship ceremonies, real accomplishments with real impact. My parents still follow me, but they never like or comment. Last week, one of the kids from that October event messaged me, saying he'd just gotten accepted to college with a full scholarship. Reading that message meant more than any congratulations from my parents ever could have. I'm not invisible anymore. Not because my family finally sees me, but because I stopped waiting for their validation and started building a life where I actually matter. The Porsche sits in my garage in Salt Lake City, and sometimes I take it out for drives through the mountains, windows down, music loud, feeling like the person I always should have been. My phone never rings with calls from home, and that's exactly how I want it. What do you think about this story?